Rush Limbaugh, late nights on TV 18.
Tippecanoe County Sheriff is crowded. On May 3rd, Tippecanoe County residents will have 6 candidates from which to choose. To help voters make an informed decision, TV 18 presents tonight's forum, Campaign 94, The Race for Sheriff. And now, live from the Tippecanoe County Library, here's our moderator, Mike Piggott.
Good evening to you. This happens every 8 years around here, it seems. The sheriff serves his second consecutive term. The law doesn't allow him to serve another, and so the candidates flock to run for the nomination, in this case the Republican nomination. 6 men who are involved in law enforcement, or at least have been in our community, are wanting the Republican nomination to be sheriff of Tippecanoe County. We want to introduce you to them. We want to talk to them throughout the next hour, and hopefully you, a voter, will be able to make an informed decision come primary day. So let's get right to the candidates. We're going to give each of them a minute or so to tell us a little bit about themselves before we get started. The chance to introduce yourself to them. First off, a one-time deputy sheriff, Bob Arden. Bob.
Yes, I am Bob Arden. I've lived in Tippecanoe County most of my life, 32 years. Graduated from Williamsport High School. I am the father of 2 sons. Michael, my oldest, is 20. Stephen is 18. I am married to Janice Arden, a first-grade teacher at Linwood School. And I have 21 years experience in law enforcement, 6 years military. A year and a half of that was in Vietnam, and the other 4 years was attached to a unit that was attached to the White House under Johnson, President Johnson and President Kennedy. I have 5 years experience on the Police Department and 10 years experience on the Sheriff's Department, reaching from rank of patrolman through sergeant through lieutenant.
Another candidate for the Republican nomination for sheriff is a member of the Indiana State Police Department, David Morrison.
Thank you, Mike. I'm David Morrison. I've been with Indiana State Police now for approximately 22 years. Prior to that, I was a school teacher here in the Tippecanoe County School Corporation. I attained a Bachelor of Science degree in education in Oklahoma. Started my master's studies at the University of Purdue before I decided to leave teaching and go into law enforcement. I've been married 28 years to a girl I met at the high school that I attended, Lafayette Jefferson High School. I have a son that attends Harrison High School and a daughter that's watching me on TV in New Richmond. Thank you.
A captain on the Tippecanoe County Police Department hoping to become the sheriff is Dave Murtaugh.
I'm Dave Murtaugh. I'm a lifelong resident of Tippecanoe County. I want to be your sheriff because I care about the future of Tippecanoe County. I've dedicated my entire life to law enforcement and getting ready to be your sheriff. I'm the most qualified candidate for sheriff because I have the education, the commitment, and the experience to do the job. My 16 years on the Sheriff's Department have prepared me to be your sheriff. My law enforcement degree and FBI National Academy training have also prepared me to be your sheriff. Currently, I'm a captain on the Sheriff's Department in charge of the Enforcement Division. I understand the operation of the jail, the management of personnel, administrative and budgeting procedures, civil process, and of working the road. I know our community through my active involvement in community organizations. I care about the future of Tippecanoe County.
A member of the Lafayette Police Department is also seeking the Republican nomination for sheriff, Barry Richard.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, I'm Barry Richard. I'm a lifelong resident of Tippecanoe County. My wife, Cindy, and I have been married for 14 years. We have 3 children, Clayton, Casey, and Taylor, who attend the Vinton Elementary School here in Lafayette. Currently, I'm a first-class patrolman with the Lafayette Police Department. I also am a property manager of a government-subsidized apartment complex. That position requires overseeing and managing a staff, preparing and executing an annual budget. Also in 1990, I was certified as an occupancy specialist by the National Center of Housing Management. My experiences include the police department, property management, city council, which gave me very valuable experience in government and establishing multi-million-dollar budgets, program director of the Boys Club, house parent at Cary Home, house manager at group homes, a caseworker for the Area 4 Council on Aging, which allowed me to work with our senior citizens here in Tippecanoe County. I have volunteered and served our local Special Olympics, United Way, and many other community agencies. Thank you.
Another candidate for the Republican nomination for sheriff is a former policeman and a bailiff in the courts, Bob Shope.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening. My name is Bob Shope. I'm 48 years old. I'm married. My wife and I presently live in Stockwell. My present position is Special Deputy Sheriff in the Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Department. My official title is Security Bailiff for the Circuit and Superior Courts. I've held this position for 6 years. I left the Lafayette City Police Department after I obtained this position. During my time with the police department, I was a patrolman in the uniform division. My experience on the street include everything from presidential escort to traffic tickets. Prior to that, I was in the United States Army for 3 years. Sergeant E5, served in maximum security area in South Korea. Thank you.
The sixth candidate for the Republican nomination is the second-ranking officer on the county police department, Butch Worthington.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Butch Worthington. I spent the last 24 years preparing to serve you as sheriff. I have went through all the ranks of the sheriff's department, been promoted by 3 different sheriffs. The most recent, nearly 5 years ago, to the rank of major by Sheriff Heath. With that rank, I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the entire department. And in the absence of the sheriff, I assume all of his responsibilities. The citizens of Tippecanoe County are in position of a very unique situation. They can elect an officer to that position of sheriff that has never, there has never been an officer that has accomplished what I have within the sheriff's department and went further to run for sheriff of Tippecanoe County. Thank you.
Well, here, the situation facing the sheriff is this, that the sheriff will be the only elected lawman in the community, but also will administer a department, a significant department in county government, perhaps the largest, will have several $100,000 budget, a major piece of property to oversee. It's a major administrative position. What I want to ask you is, just beyond your law enforcement qualifications, if each of the candidates would explain to us what kind of qualifications you have to administer the budget and to run a department outside of your law enforcement background. And first off to Dave Murtaugh.
The experience that I have is working day-to-day with our current Sheriff Dave Heath, as I have for the past 5 years, as a part of his administrative team. I've come up through the ranks of the department. I know the department well. I know the administrative part of the budget. I've worked with him on the budget yearly with the enforcement division. I understand the operation of the jail. I understand the civil process, and I understand the courts. I've also sat in on the county council meeting and have talked to the county commissioners and the county council about the needs and wants of the community. I understand law enforcement is an expensive business, but we cannot compromise the safety of our citizens, so we need somebody that has worked with these people, understands the operation, and ready to move us on into the future.
Bob Shope, the question to you is, tell us about your qualifications as an administrator to handle a department like this.
Well, when I was in the Army, I attended several leadership schools. I graduated second in my class of 65 at the James Reitman Non-Commissioned Officers Academy. I commanded a security dog section in a maximum security area. I managed it all. I organized the training, the pass schedules, the rotations, handled it all. I handle my own personal budget. If something looks to be too large, I know where to find an expert to help me out. And if I don't know, I'll find an expert.
Barry Richard, tell us about your administrative qualifications.
First of all, Mike, I'd like to begin with the experience on the Lafayette City Council. From 1988 through 1991, I served on the Lafayette City Council as a councilman at large, and this also gave me the opportunity to work with our city budget. These being multi-million-dollar budgets that we prepared on an annual basis. Other than that, I have also took over management of a property here in Lafayette that at one point was considered to be a troubled property and several $100,000 in debt. In a few short years, we were able to turn that property around, put it in a positive cash flow, do numerous repairs to the property, and make it a very affordable, nice living for lesser income individuals here in our community. Also, I have worked as house manager at a group home, which we had the opportunity to set the house budget and maintain the operations. Therefore, throughout the agencies I've worked with and experiences through the council, I feel like I've had a great deal of experience in budgeting and administrative abilities.
To Butch Worthington, explain to us your qualifications as an administrator of the Sheriff's Department.
Well, I think naturally with 24 years experience in going through every rank in the Sheriff's Department, doing the job for the last 5 years in the absence of the Sheriff, and just last year in his absence, I did prepare the 1994 budget for the department. Upon his return, he made some final adjustments and it was submitted to the County Council. So by far, I have every experience that these gentlemen have and much more.
Bob Arden, explain to us your administrative qualifications.
While in the military, several times when there was no officer present, I was, as a Sergeant E5, acting platoon leader. On the Sheriff's Department, when there was no other higher authority other than the shift lieutenant around, which I was the shift lieutenant, I was always the one in charge on after 5 o'clock. And I was involved with the church that I attend, the budget, it's 6 figures, and I am the church treasurer, so I have to stay within the budget.
Finally, to David Morrison, if you would explain to us, in your mind, your qualifications to administer a large department like this.
I think it goes back to my college training. I started out with a business administration degree before I switched over to education. And shortly after that, I managed and was responsible for the inner-city Title III recreational program of Oklahoma City, which is in the inner portion, over 1,000 children I was responsible for 3 summers in a row. And also what I actually bring to the department, to my feeling, it's kind of a blessing. It's an unbiased view toward a budget. It's a fresh view toward a budget. The budget's already in place. It doesn't require me to immediately start out and to write one. It'll be my job, or whomever's elected as the next sheriff, to fine-tune that budget for the future and probably for the next 8 years if the pattern holds true, which takes you into the year over 2000. And so my experience in law enforcement most certainly gives me the knowledge of what is necessary. My involvement around the jails throughout the state also shows me and compares me to other systems that are operating. So I'm certain that I can do the job. Plus, if you are elected, there's a school you go to this 1 week in November to prepare you for that. So I'm sure all the candidates will be able to write a budget.
Now, I want to also have each of you look at the department as you see it right now. Tell me your analysis of the department and the way that things are operating now, and what kind of changes you would make. What would be the mark that you would see yourself leaving on the department? And we want to go just in reverse order of what you just heard from the candidates. So first off, to David Morrison, your evaluation of the department, how you see it operating now, and what would be your mark on it.
That's a wonderful department. And the mark you'll leave any sheriff is a lasting mark. My involvement with the Sheriff's Department goes back to John Rusk, my wife's uncle, that showed me the inner workings and indirectly got me involved with the knowledge of law enforcement. What we find happening is spiraling budgets. It's the second largest budget in the county, next to the county highway, approaching $4 million to put people in jail or to try and keep them out of jail. And what I think we need to do is utilize resources the best that we can, all the resources that are available. They're out there. We need to use them. We need to eagerly seek those out and to find them and save the taxpayers the most money that we can and get the most out of our dollar. I believe in constant education in officers. The job is constantly changing, and the officers need to constantly staying up to date and to be in school. They need to be compassionate and constantly well trained. I like to see the ERT team, the emergency response team that's been, I think, in existence for close to 2 years, finally get some equipment so we can use that. Just a lot of minor things, but I think mostly working together in the community of law enforcement. We are blessed in this community of having Lafayette City, an outstanding department, West Lafayette, Purdue, and Indiana State Police, and these agencies need to work together and want to work together to serve the people. That'd be one of the changes.
Bob Arden, take a look at the department as you see it now. Tell me your analysis of how things are going, how the department is operating, and what kind of mark would you leave on it as sheriff? What change would you make?
It's an extremely good department, and they've had good leadership. But I think they need some changes in the radio dispatch system for emergency. I have talked to volunteer firemen, and they say that they'll call in and they'll just get an answer of, well, hold on, we're extremely busy. So I think they need more radio dispatchers for the emergency part of it.
Let me put the same question to Butch Worthington. Butch, if you would, analyze the department. Tell me your view of it, and what kind of mark would a Sheriff Worthington leave on the department?
I'm very proud of the Sheriff's Department, obviously. Being there as long as I have, filling the ranks over the years, I've watched it grown from a very small department to the excellent department it is today. There's some things that could be improved upon. Anytime you're dealing with people, there's room for improvement. I would like to see us utilize the resources in the community, such as people that would volunteer their time, hopefully relieving some of the duties that our people have and free their time to get out on the road. Maybe doing some fine-tuning within the Sheriff's Department to utilize the personnel a little bit better.
Gary Richard, I finished? Go ahead.
All in all,
There's
it's just an excellent department, and I want to bring it into the 21st century.
Gary Richard, if you would, take a look at the Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Department. Tell me your analysis of it and what kind of a mark you would hope to leave on it.
Okay, Mike, I think our community has been blessed with very good leadership in Sheriff Harger and then Sheriff Heath. They both are very dedicated sheriffs that had a lot of input and cared about the community. Our credit as far as having a very low crime rate is in large part due to Sheriff Harger and Sheriff Heath. Their hard work, their dedicated work, all the deputies that they have had, the formulated the staff that has made our county sheriff's department one of the best in the state. I would continue to have the top quality programs that they do have. I would enhance the anti-drug programs. I would definitely gear a big program pushing towards juvenile programs. I believe that our county needs a juvenile detention center. On a day-to-day basis, as a patrolman, we see what we're losing as far as a crime deterrent with juveniles, knowing that there is no juvenile detention center here in Tippecanoe County. I feel as sheriff, I'd be able to lobby a lot harder and push for a juvenile detention center here in Lafayette and Tippecanoe County. The juveniles right now, they know that there's no place that they're going to be put as far as the detention center, and this is creating a rapid increase in crime, especially in the juvenile area. And I think we need to put an end to that. It all starts with our juvenile programs and our anti-drug programs, and that's where I would work my hardest is pushing towards the juvenile programs here in Tippecanoe County and hopefully realizing a juvenile detention center that could serve as a regional detention center, which the cost for that would be offset by neighboring counties making placement of juvenile offenders into our center.
Same question to Bob Schoaf. Your analysis of the Tippecanoe County Police Department.
Well, I have to agree with everyone else. I believe it's an excellent department. I've worked for it for 6 years. What I would like to do is implement a reserve deputy program. One's been in use in Marion County for decades. It provides a citizen with extra uniformed police officers, trained police officers at a minimal cost. White County just went to one. They've doubled their police force that's available to respond to calls. I would like to bring the department into the 21st century as well. I would like to implement the use of the drug dog. Most people aren't even aware that the Sheriff's Department has one. I would like to make that available to school administrators for random drug checks in the schools if they'd like, and they could handle the violations in-house. I'd like to make it available to business people so that they could check their own employees in the lockers to make the workplace safer. That's just a few of the ideas that I have. I think we could possibly use more marked squad cars on the streets instead of unmarked squad cars. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to pay any more property taxes than what anybody else does. I've read a 138-page study of the feasibility of implementing a new juvenile detention center, and I would have to agree with the study is that we don't need one here. I have the unusual insight of working in the court systems where most law enforcement officers only come in to testify. The availability for detention for juveniles does exist. Judge Hand works very hard. She has a beeper. Juveniles are sent to Johnson County, and they're afraid to go to Johnson County. So I think working with the judges and the juvenile system, we can make things a lot better.
Dave Murtaugh, analyze the Tippecanoe County Police Department and tell me what role as sheriff you would like to, or what you would like to leave as your mark on the department.
The Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Department is an extremely fine organization. The mark that I would like to leave on it is the continued good communication that we have between the police departments, Purdue Police, West Lafayette Police, and the State Police, and working together. And I believe we do. We work together on community grants such as seatbelt awareness, the educational programs, large events in the community. I feel we work together well and exchange information. The mark I would like to leave is one like John Rusk, Ed Harger, and Dave Heath. That'd be a very proud mark, and my mark would be the education and working together with the community, and the crime prevention programs, I think, are one of the biggest things. If we work together, help each other, we can all reduce crime and make our life a lot safer for the people of Tippecanoe County.
I want to ask you a question about one of the situations that seems to be developing, at least there is more and more public discussion about it in our community, and that is crime involving young people, but more importantly, perhaps, the potential for crime involving gangs. I want to start at one end with Butch Worthington and just come right down through you and ask you, if you will, to tell me about your view of this community. Is there a situation developing with gangs that we should be aware of, and as a law enforcement officer, what do you think we should be doing about it? Butch.
I think the fact that the gang element is here, to what extent, I don't believe there's anyone that can give you a true picture to what extent. I believe there's some confusion in definition, gangs versus groups. I believe there's a lot of groups that even when I was in high school and grade school, we had little cliques that we dressed the same, done similar things, hung out together. And I believe perhaps in this community there's some difficulty separating the two. In larger cities, there most definitely is a gang problem. Not to say that if we do not take it at hand at this point that there won't be one eventually.
Bob Schoaf, is there a gang problem in this community, and if so, what should we do about it?
I think there's a lot of wannabes. I think there's a lot of kids that want to belong. I think there's a lot of kids from dysfunctional families. I'm not so certain that we really have a gang problem as yet. I think the school administrations are effectively working towards it with dress codes, with behavior restrictions. And I think if we stay on top of the issue and don't let it get out of hand and recognize that the issue might exist, I think we can handle it. It might come as a shock to most people, but I can tell you this, that the Lafayette Police Department nor the Sheriff's Department has any detectives that work weekends or after 10 o'clock at night. Now, I'm sure if we do have gangs, they work on weekends and they do work after 10 o'clock at night. And I'd make sure that somebody's out there checking.
Barry Richard, is there a gang problem in our community? And if so, what would a Sheriff Barry Richard do to address it?
Mike, there is a very serious concern about the development of gangs here in the Tippecanoe County area. And this all stems back to the youth. We need to push a lot of priority towards the programs, the crime prevention programs, the educational programs, the anti-drug programs to the youth. And then also we need to have that deterrent there, that youth, they know that if they commit a crime, there's going to be a serious consequence, and not just turn around and turn them back over to their parents. It's very frustrating on a daily basis as a patrolman. You go and say a juvenile has run away from home and won't mind their parents and guardian and so forth, and they're a runaway, and all the patrolman can do at this point is we go make the scene of the house, we arrest them for being a runaway, but then again we turn around and release them to the parent. And that is not teaching the juvenile well. They're knowing that all they have to do is go back out the back door as soon as we leave, and then they get into the activity that creates and leads into gang activity. We need a deterrent to stop this type of activity and let them know that we're going to be serious about crime, and we're not going to accept anything less than rights that other citizens in our community have. Therefore, I would like to say that I know our police department, we were seeing some gang activity, and a couple of our patrol officers took it on themselves to actually monitor the gang activity, and they got in and finally were able to make some arrests, and now those individuals who were involved have fled our county. And that's what I would like to do, is set up special task force and members within our department to seek out the activity going on and make sure it does not become a full-fledged problem where we're going to have problems with this all the time.
Dave Murtaugh, is there a gang problem in our community? If so, what would Sheriff Murtaugh do to address it?
I can't say if there's a gang problem right now, but if we ignore the problem and do nothing, then we will have a problem. The Sheriff's Department has communicated with the schools and given programs to teachers and educators about detecting gang activity and preventing gang activity. We also have messages for the community and schools with an anti-gang theory. We also put on a special school through the U.S. Attorney's Office last December. It was attended by over 90 law enforcement officers from across the state, exchanging ideas about gangs and what we're facing, so that we're ready to face it, because if we ignore the problems that are affecting large cities and small cities like our communities, if we ignore those, then we're going to have a serious problem here. And we need to meet those problems head on so we can deter them before they happen here.
David Morrison, your view.
I think in terms of gangs, you have to give a definition for a gang. In the last year or two, there's been a lot of media about it concerning whether there is or whether there's not. And a gang is 5 or more people with the sole purpose of committing crimes. Standing on the street corner, being in McDonald's, driving around recklessly is not a gang, according to this definition. A gang is for the purpose of committing crimes, its sole purpose. I don't feel at this time that that's a major problem, or even a problem yet. It's a situation that's coming from media concern, from education. It's stirring up the whole community. The kids are reading and watching. There's a lot of children, young boys and girls out there that are looking for a new way to become a member of something and are copying what we're talking about. So the problem is deciphering between are they or aren't they. Just yesterday, as an instructor of the Law Enforcement Academy, I hosted a gang seminar at the State Police Post from people from Dumont to South Montgomery, North Montgomery, Kokomo, because they're concerned about it, and trying to teach and to prepare people what to look for. The answer is early intervention. And building a juvenile detention center at millions of dollars doesn't scare anyone. If it did, our jail would be empty by now. It didn't scare those people. They're flocking to get in by the hundreds. And that is not the answer. A juvenile detention center does not pay for itself. That was proven, as Mr. Schoaf mentioned, by the task force. So what we have to do is go back into the schools, get law enforcement people involved with education and community leaders, trying to show them what a gang looks like, what you can do to prevent it, and be active in it. And a new gang law that we have, and new laws that go on the books in July in terms of beepers on school property, cellular phones, rifles, and all this becomes a serious offense anymore. So laws are coming along. We just have to keep the educators up with them so that they know what's going on so we can work together in the community.
Bob Arden, do you see a gang problem? And if so, what, as sheriff, would you do about it?
No, I do not see a gang problem. But I think as long as you keep kids under control by having more officers out on the road and more education for juveniles that do get into trouble, then I think you would not have a gang problem.
We're going to give the candidates and the moderator a chance to wipe their brow and take a breath, and we're going to break away for a minute. We'll come back with more questions to the candidates for the Republican nomination for sheriff right after this.
Chili, fries, coffee.
You better add on some thumbs.
On the house.
Except these aren't thumbs.
Same thing.
You got them all mixed up.
I told you they're all the same.
Listen to me. Combs has calcium. Is this calcium? No, it uses aluminum and magnesium. So does this. The only one of these that helps wipe out heartburn and gives you calcium you need is Combs.
Something my body needs anyway. I like that.
Insist on calcium-rich Tums. When it comes to great tasting Eggo waffles, nobody likes them more than Dan Marley, except maybe his longtime rival, B.J. Armstrong. Dan knows B.J. loves that golden Eggo crispness. B.J. knows Dan loves that delicious Eggo taste. Only thing they didn't know was how much Marty Dawson loves them.
Hey! There go my Eggo!
Eggo waffles, the part of a good breakfast that's just too much fun to let go.
Looking for this?
New Nutrageous from Reese's. Peanuts, milk chocolate, caramel, Reese's peanut butter. New Nutrageous. Give your mouth a party.
Believe it or not, both twins had straight hair. Which twin permed to get curly? Which just used a shampoo? Wash and Curl shampoo. Its special curl enhancers work right in the shower.
I permed. I use Wash and Curl.
Wash and Curl, the curling shampoo.
Back live to the Tippecanoe County Public Library. I'm Mike Pickett, and with me for the next half hour, the candidates for the Republican nomination for Tippecanoe County Sheriff. We want to go back to questioning them, and I'm going to begin by posing the question first to Dave Murtaugh. What is the #1 problem facing law enforcement in Tippecanoe County?
Phil, the #1 problem facing law enforcement right now in Tippecanoe County is we need to educate our public through crime prevention programs how to detect crime, what's going on in our community, things that they can do to help make this community safer. Those kind of things I feel are the things that are facing us, and we need to work together to help have a safe community that we have and the low crime rate we have now so that we can enjoy that into the future.
Bob Shope, in your view, the #1 problem facing law enforcement in Tippecanoe County?
I think it's credibility. I think for too long we've gotten away from community policing. It's trendy to say that that's what we'd like to do, is get back into community policing. In the late 60s, early 70s, when I was on the police department, that's exactly what we did. And later, we got into crunching numbers in the computer as to evaluating whether or not our police departments were effective. I believe that the citizens are feeling isolated, and I think that they need to have an ability to contact individual officers. And the more officers we put on the street, the more contact, the more faith we'll have in us. And we can do our job better. And that's it.
Barry Richard, your view on the #1 problem facing law enforcement here?
Well, Mike, I'll stay with what I've been saying pretty much throughout the forum here, is that our juvenile justice system, we must take a strong hold on the juvenile justice system, and not only the deterrent as far as having the detention center, we need the educational programs, the school liaison program. I recall when our department had Officer Pat Hughes visit the schools, and that was a tremendous success. I would like to see that same type of program done countywide and enter all the schools and community agencies and have a very strong anti-crime, crime prevention programs, anti-drug educational programs, programs that will deter and help educate the juveniles so we don't have the problems with them in their later years. I think that Officer Pat Hughes did a tremendous job, and a lot of our citizens here in the Tippecanoe County can actually thank Mr. Hughes for the great job he's done in the past with our youth in Tippecanoe County.
Butch Worthington, the #1 problem in your view facing law enforcement here?
I believe the biggest concern that I hear from the public is that of not feeling like they belong to a segment of their community, and that being the police departments. I believe there's an atmosphere out there that it's us against them. They feel like they do not take part in the decisions made by the departments. I think we can correct that by community awareness, getting out in the community, providing programs to different segments of the community, and just making the citizens of this county feel like they are a part of our operation.
To Bob Arden, in your view, the top problem facing law enforcement here?
I think it's juvenile drinking and drugs. I think if you put more officers out on the gravel roads and not just blacktop roads, then you're going to get a lot of juveniles, get rid of the problem before it even starts.
Dave Morrison, if you would explain to us, in your view, the top problem facing law enforcement here.
I think, Mike, balancing enforcement with prevention. The old saying, it stays true to this day, an ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure. And more and more police officers does not prevent crime. You can go to Gary, you can go to Detroit, you can go to Chicago, Phoenix, 2,300 police officers. It does not prevent crime. All you do is put people in jail. You have to balance enforcement with prevention. You have to be dedicated to that. I spent the last 6 years of my life with Indiana State Police touring all over the state promoting programs that address just those issues, from the children to the elderly and everyone in between. Most recently, we've been credited the Indiana State Police for pioneering the tough drunk driving laws, and also through the educational programs that's brought those fatalities down. And I'm very proud of being part of that. The Don't Talk to Strangers with my talking dog. I've traveled all over the state doing what these candidates have talking about, and I know it works. But you have to be aggressive in it, and you have to put it as a priority. It's not something that if we have nothing better to do, we'll find an officer free. I would create a division, just as the state police has within the sheriff's department, as a liaison officer to see if this is done, to be responsible for getting the traffic grants, and most certainly to see that we would have someone available for all these groups, not just on the day we're not busy. The people want a peace officer, not a law enforcement official. And I'd like to go back to that, and not that enforcement isn't very vital. We have an outstanding record of all the agencies in this county providing that type of protection, but it's getting too expensive. It's time that we realize that we have to do just like we've taught our children. We have to start educating about the drugs, about the crime, about scams, about date rape, and so on, and then you won't need the police to come all the time. It'll be one of my priorities.
Okay, but a young person commits a crime, and a fairly serious crime. In this community, what do you do? What do you do when you arrest that person with... Right now, there is no juvenile detention facility. Should there be one, and if not, how do you handle that young person? Dave Morrison, why don't you begin?
Okay. The Juvenile Detention Center, first of all, it's not a jail. It's a temporary facility. It's not a catch-all where you lock the boys and girls up and throw the key away. I think as of July of '93, the state law provides up to 120 days in a juvenile detention center. We don't have one here. If I'm not mistaken, most of the children or young boys and girls go to Johnson County. The criminal association that evaluates the beds and so on available in the state of Indiana and throughout the United States has warned this commission that studied about juvenile detention center that there's more beds than what are available, or than what are needed. A juvenile detention center does not pay for itself. Like a jail made through the general fund. It's a very expensive procedure. It costs $1 million to run a 16-bed ward, $1 million a year to run a 16-bed ward. I just don't feel that, although it's an inconvenience for the sheriff's department and so on to transport these boys and girls, there's grants for that, by the way. that pay for these deputies on their off-duty time or the correction officers to transport them. There's grants for that. It's not being bared totally by taxpayers of this county. And I also don't feel that it's our requirement in this county to build a detention center because White County won't build one, because Carroll County won't build one. It is not the county's responsibility to maintain the peace and safety for the region. If we can't get together and share the expense, which the commission found out that they won't, they're willing to send children to it, but they won't pay for it. And I don't think the taxpayers should. We'll keep transporting them to Johnson County until there's a better answer if I'm elected sheriff.
Bob Arden, your feeling about a juvenile detention facility?
I think the county needs one. From the figures I have seen in the paper and different other places, by the year 2000, we're going to grow quite a bit, and there's going to be quite a few children. Why, I really don't know, but I think more education for parents of these children and for the children themselves would be the answer.
Butch Worthington, what to do about a juvenile detention facility?
I believe that's an issue that really hasn't been solved at this point. I disagree with Mr. Morrison, the sheriff of Johnson County, who is responsible for their detention center down there, states that it costs their county absolutely zero to maintain that building because of other counties utilizing that facility. Yes, I think we do need a juvenile detention center here. It is very parallels the county jail down there. If the space is available, it will be utilized by someone, and why not house our children here and let other counties foot the bill?
Barry Richard.
Pretty good now, Mike. I think I'm talking some of these guys into the juvenile detention center. Again, I feel it's very important, and the original question was that what do we do with a juvenile who has committed a crime, a serious crime, and since we don't have a juvenile detention, what do we do? Well, I'd like to relay a few stories here which are true stories. Juvenile was arrested. He was brought to headquarters. He was arrested for stealing a handgun. And by the way, it was loaded. We caught the individual with it. He admitted that he stole the gun, and he said, so what? What are you going to do? Well, we didn't make the contacts as far as the probation department, the judge, and so forth, and we were told under no circumstances is this individual going to be incarcerated or placed in juvenile detention center. Well, if those type of serious crimes are going on with juveniles, we've had, and no answer for it, I say definitely our community is in dire need of a facility that would detain these juveniles for such serious crimes. We've also had juveniles who have stolen automobiles, and what do? They're arrested and released right back to the parents, which they walk out the back door at any time they feel. They need to know the seriousness, and they need to see the deterrent in the law enforcement for not committing those crimes. I think that, as Butch had stated, if a juvenile detention center is run properly and the finances of it could be offset by being a regional juvenile detention center. And by the way, when we send these juveniles out of the county, that's not just a free ride down the road. We're paying over $100 per diem per day for these juveniles to be sent out of our county. That's the taxpayers' dollars. And that's one of the big items I would like to do is maximize the police protection while minimizing the cost of that.
Bob Schoaf.
As I said earlier, I read the report, 138 pages, and I still agree with their version. If I was elected sheriff, I would appreciate having a juvenile detention center, and I would enjoy having 200-300 juveniles in there, because then I'd make a lot of money on the meals that are made. But I, as a taxpayer, can't see it. I just don't see it. Judge Hand has won awards statewide for her control and handling of the juvenile courts. I see an entirely different picture than what the other guys on the street do. I know that Judge Hand makes herself readily available. If there is a serious problem, she's always ready to put someone in detention. Just last week, I put 5 juveniles and held them in custody to be transported to Johnson County. So I don't see the same picture that the other guys on the street do. And I guess maybe it's my position, being that I've worked for the courts for 6 years, that I can relate law enforcement with the court system. I think there needs to be some more communication The sheriff needs to work in conjunction with the judge and the people on the street so that we can get rid of some of these misunderstandings and take care of the problem.
And finally, David Murtaugh.
The Sheriff's Department and the courts need to work together and communicate so that they get a better understanding of what the Sheriff's Department needs and what the court needs. If we had a juvenile detention center here, the court's limited into who they can put in, irregardless if we have one here in Johnson County or if we had one here in Tippecanoe County. They did a study. They determined it wasn't feasible and cost-effective to do it. The sheriff of Johnson County says they do make money, and it doesn't cost the county anything to do that. It is time-consuming to transport prisoners back and forth. We understand that. That's part of our job as a sheriff's department to do that for the courts. But the sheriff's department and the sheriff and the judges need to communicate more, and that, I think, would help a lot into the determining of whether we need a juvenile detention center down the road. Right now, things work pretty well. It would definitely be nice to have one here, but we work well with the courts, and they've decided that we shouldn't have one, and I can live with that.
Anti-crime legislation is being written, and I want to ask each of the candidates if you could offer advice to either a federal lawmaker or a state legislator on what kind of legislation needs to be written to deal with crime, particularly as it affects our community. What kind of advice would you give? And let's go right up the row, beginning with Bob Arden.
I think if they have mandatory sentencing for second, third, fourth offenders, first offenders, I can see letting them off, maybe probation, depends on what the crime is, but I think mandatory sentencing.
David Morrison, what anti-crime legislation is needed?
Well, we've heard a lot about gun control, and that's a whole issue in a whole nother bag, which we won't get into. What we need in this particular county, and I think throughout the United States, is not so much putting people in prison, but programs to help keep them out. That's early intervention programs through child prevention programs and things of this nature to keep them out of prison, to break them of the spiraling chain of crime after crime, and having the government to help support those programs. Traditionally, what we do is we build jails and fill them. And I think the government needs to go back to trying to go back to the cradle and empty them there and provide the proper training and programs that if a child does go astray, he gets the proper trainings and so on to prevent it. And so it goes back to prevention.
Dave Murtaugh, your advice to the lawmakers, what kind of laws should they write?
It kind of comes along with the 3 strikes and you're out. First time you train the trainable, the second time you redeem the redeemable, and the third time you lock them up.
Barry Richard.
Mike, I'd like to see more legislation geared towards parents responsible for their juveniles. Also, as far as the action, that's why one of our biggest crime deterrents right now in Tippecanoe County is some of the very dedicated and hardworking judges we have, such as Judge Johnson. I've made arrests before where the first question that comes out of the prisoner's mouth is, "Oh no, I won't go in front of Judge Johnson." Well, and I think that's a great deterrent because they know that he's hardworking, he's going to look at it, and he's going to take the victim's rights into concern. And I think the more that we can do to protect the citizens of our counties and communities and make sure that the rights are not violated, the better we all are all for that. And I think as long as we gear towards the rights of everyone in our community, and anyone who violates that will stand to receive the punishments and consequences for doing that.
Bob Show.
Originally, the federal government was established to provide for the people what they couldn't do for themselves. I believe that the federal government is too far away. We do have a 3 strikes you're out program. It's called a habitual criminal program here in Indiana, and it works effectively. I don't believe that Washington has the wherewithal or the knowledge to know how to effectively run crime or law enforcement in our community. As far as most of the federal law enforcement bills, crime prevention bills, we don't need any more. What we need is for the federal government to enforce the ones we have. We've got 25,000 firearms legislation laws on the books, but they don't enforce them. I can tell you from experience at Lafayette City that I could count on one hand the number of times the BATF has come in and arrested a convicted felon for possession of a firearm. I can count on both hands the number of times the county prosecutor has prosecuted a person for a gun violation, they'll generally drop that and go with a lesser charge or plea bargain. So I don't think we need more legislation. I think we need to be left alone, decide our own fates, and let our law enforcement locally do what we do best, and that's control the criminals.
Butch Worthington, your advice to the lawmakers.
I think just Bob went and echoed, I want to echo everything that Bob said. For the most part, there's enough laws on the books. We need to utilize the laws we have at this point. I think the key word was mentioned earlier, and that's deterrent. If we don't have a deterrent for these people, we'll never accomplish anything. I think that goes even to the juveniles that mentioned before. You got to establish a deterrent to accomplish the end result.
We're nearing our time limit, but let me ask a question, and each of you, if you just take 30 seconds or so to respond to it. But the county council says to you, you can have one more deputy next year. Sheriff, where are you going to use him? Butch Worthington, start with you. Where's your one more person going to go?
Well, without question, he's going to go in uniform and on the road. That is obviously, the emergency calls are the prime area we need to concentrate on at this point, making the citizens aware that uniform's out there and provide safety for them.
Bob Schoaf, where do you put your one new person?
If I had to take one new person, he'd go in uniform, of course. If I could take the money and use it as I wanted, I would organize a reserve deputy force and double the force in a matter of months.
Barry Richard.
Without a doubt, it would be a school liaison officer full-time, and they would not only deal with the youth, but all of our community agencies and establish the anti-drug programs, the educational programs, and be very involved in the community and be willing to come out at any time to work with not only youth, but any agency within the community.
David, if the county council says to you one more deputy for the department or one more position, what is it?
He's definitely going in uniform, and we're going to expand the crime prevention and school programs that we're currently doing.
David Morrison.
In uniform, and he'll be reporting to me every day where he's going today to talk about crime prevention. In uniform.
Bob?
I agree, in uniform.
Let me ask you one more quick question then. Deal with the drug problem in this community very quickly. How serious? What are you going to do about it? Bob Arden.
I think someone said before that there's nobody on the road in detective division after a certain time. I think if you've had somebody working all night long, following up on different calls that pertain to drugs, I think you'd help it quite a bit.
David Morrison.
Repeat the question. Didn't quite understand.
What's your response, and quickly, to the drug problem? How do you cope with that?
Through education of the officers, recognizing, detecting, training. There's schools that you can send deputies to that'll different types where you can, through the eyes, tell what type of drug they're on, which will lead you to what type to look for. Interdiction programs, they need to be taught how to detect by observing and watching what types of vehicles and persons perhaps might be a carrier or whatever. And so
Dave Murtaugh, how do you cope with it?
Could you repeat the question?
Basically, how do you cope with the drug problem? What's your response to it?
The drug problem, there's funding through the local coalition, working together with the agencies. We have detectives that are assigned to narcotics investigation, working with the local police agencies. We have networking, a computer that we were just given on a grant to network between the agencies, to exchange information, working together. Detectives work in flexible shifts. That's how we deal with the drug problem.
Barry.
Mike, when the question was asked, the first person that came to my mind was an officer on our department, Officer Brian Baker. He's an extremely dedicated officer, and he himself had got involved in a few situations where he saw the gang problem, the drug problem was starting to get enhanced and grow, and he personally made sure that he followed as much as he could the individuals involved. And like I say, he's one of the ones that made the arrest, and now thanks to him, we have gotten those individuals out of our community. And I think setting up a task force to fight the crime and particularly drugs would be a very valuable asset to our county department.
Bob Schultz.
As I said earlier, I'd like to utilize the drug dog more in the schools and businesses if they'd allow it. If they'd request, I'd make it available. I've talked with the judges 3 years ago to modify their sentencing procedures when giving a convicted felon probation. They changed the wording and put in any police officer may search the house or vehicle. I would like to work closely with the judges, use the drug dog and the deputies, and if a person's a convicted felon in Tippecanoe County, I want to tell you, our people are going to go in and check his home out and make sure that he's clean.
Butch Worthington.
I think Dave explained it very well, what we are doing to combat the drug problem in Tippecanoe County, and that's through education and the various programs we've established through the department using federal grants, state and federal grants to obtain the needed items to assist us in doing just that.
Your chance to sell yourself. If you could do a 30-second commercial for yourself on TV 18, what are you going to tell them? How, and this is your wrap-up, how is it, or why is it that you should be the next sheriff of Tippecanoe County? Bob Arden.
I have 21 years experience. I think I could work with the other departments to help curtail the crime rate in the county. And it's going to be a tough choice for the voters to make come May 3rd, and my name will be on the top.
David Morrison.
Well, I bring an unbiased view, as I mentioned before, to an already good agency, bringing another one in with its knowledge and background, and combining the two to add a brace of fresh air. Also, I've heard two things commonly mentioned, and that's communication and prevention. And that's been my living for the last 6 years in Indiana State Police, conducting those programs and doing that communication. So I'm convinced if chosen as your candidate, I'll be very compassionate and always have an ear open to the public and allow them to be more involved in the decision making.
Dave Murtaugh.
I want to be sheriff because I care about the future of Tippecanoe County. I have the qualifications, the education, the training, and experience. I know the department inside and out, and I'm very proud of the sheriff's department. And working together with all the people, we can get the job done.
Barry Richard.
Mike, I feel very confident in this election. I think that it's good that I've been throughout the community, worked with many of the agencies. I feel very gratified and rewarded in being able to serve the numerous agencies. I have 15 years in law enforcement. I have experience in managerial positions. I've had work in our budgets. My goals are to work with our youth, set up a school liaison program, to set up the crime prevention programs, set up the drug task force, and also to complete cooperation with the other agencies within our county, and that will serve as the best county department we could hope for.
Bob Show.
I want to be the sheriff because I care. I've been in this business almost 30 years, and I want to make it my career. I have some special, unique insights due to my experience and my training and working with the courts and such that I believe that I can carry it on. And I want to bring this department in and make it a progressive department. So if you want an honest, sincere, dedicated leader, I'm the one to vote for.
Butch Worthington.
I have 24 years in the Sheriff's Department. I have 5 years of actually doing the Sheriff's job. Without question, I'm the most qualified candidate, and I want to put that 24 years to its fullest capabilities in serving the public the best possible.
So there you have the candidates for the Republican nomination for Tippecanoe County Sheriff. We have with us Butch Worthington, a major on the department, a former policeman, now a bailiff, Bob Schoaf, Lafayette Patrolman Barry Richard, Captain Dave Murtaugh of the Tippecanoe County Police Department, State Police Sergeant David Morrison, and a former police officer, Bob Arden. These are the candidates for the
Out of Market Square Shopping Center. We'll have local news, weather, and sports coming up on Lafayette Live.
It's true. You can get complete glasses at Dr. Tavel's for less than lenses at that other one-hour place. Dr. Tavel's, 1 hour glasses without the 1 hour price.
Now for a limited time, get 2 complete pairs of glasses in about an hour and a thorough eye examination for only $99.98. Only at Dr. Tavel's 1 Hour Optical.
At Dr. Tavel's, we've both got great-looking glasses for less than 1 pair at that other 1 Hour place. Dr. Tavel's 1 Hour glasses.
That's the 1 hour price.
Twin City Dodge, Chrysler, Plymouth, and TV18 are proud to present Purdue's Female Athlete of the Month for November. Freshman swimmer Marissa Watts from San Jose, California led Purdue to a 4-1 record in the month of November and won 3 individual races in 3 different meets, including Ohio, Kentucky, and Penn State. She went undefeated in both the 500 and 1,000 freestyle and broke 3 Lambert Pool records versus Penn State.
During this holiday season, it's important to remember what we have to be thankful for. Our families and friends,
but a nice community, ever-growing, but small enough to reach out to those in need.
It's been a good year here at Twin City Dodge Chrysler Plymouth, so we'd like to say thank you from our sales, service, and office staff.
So drive with care.
Buckle up! And happy holidays from Twin City Dodge.
Now, from TV18, Lafayette's news leader, Mike Pickett, Sarah Eisler, Gary Seith with weather, and Rex Troutman Sports. This is Lafayette Live, TV18 News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Joel Allen. Mike has the night off. This news just in, U.S. officials are saying as we speak that North Korea will be releasing downed chopper pilot Bobby Hall in a few hours. We will have more on that story on CBS News immediately following our newscast.
Here in Lafayette, the second teenager charged in the murder of restaurant owner Gary Cook is now awaiting sentencing after confessing earlier today.
17-year-old Joshua Smith pleaded guilty to murder as part of a deal with the prosecutor's office. Smith's plea agreement is identical to the one entered by his co-defendant, Michael Brand.
But as Kelly Murphy reports, the two have different stories when it comes to what happened on the night of Cook's death.
Did you intend to kill him, Josh?
No, I didn't.
17-year-old Joshua Smith says he never planned to kill Gary Cook. He claims he just wanted to rob him. Pleading guilty to murder today, Smith told the court he drove Cook's car while 17-year-old Michael Brand held a gun against the victim's neck at around 7 or 7:30 on the night of December 14th. Smith said Brand told him where to drive, and they stopped along 850 North near US 231. He said the three got out of the car and Cook took off running. Smith says he tackled Cook from behind, bringing him down on all fours. He said Mike kicked him in the face.